Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa ba'd. So we're still on chapter 6, learning the Arabic language, phase 3, page 90. Page 90. Alright, so the first phase, what did we talk about? The first phase was just like learning the Arabic, like learning how to read, get the correct pronunciation, everything. The second phase is just kind of like what? Picking up words, you know. Okay. Like you see, like how the Medina books, they start to introduce things. You know, هذا باب, هذا كتاب, هذا قلم, هذا, you know, and just like, you know, هذا مجنون, you know. All right, so just like that, right? Just picking up words. So now we're gonna go and just put this now. Phase 3 is now where you start to like get into like a ta'bir. And like putting all this language together to make, you know, sentences and, you know, and speech. All right, so phase 3. In this phase, you're going to focus on ta'bir. All right, and ta'bir, it comes from the word abbara, yu'abbiru ta'biran, which is similar to the meaning of like articulate in the English language. It's like how to articulate your ideas. So it's the same thing like in English. You have to be able to put it into a sentence where the person can understand what you're saying. And that sentence has to be correct. It has to be not only structurally correct as far as grammar is concerned, but it also has to be what? That you're using the words in the right context with the right meaning in the right way. You know? And if you're not doing that, then the person's not going to understand what you're saying, right? And that's why you see a lot of people, even when they're learning a language, that's one of the biggest things the biggest problems they face is using the word in the right way. Because if you're using it in the wrong way, even though you like, well, this is what it means, that's what it means, but that's not how the people understand. That's not how they use it. You know, all of this has to come together, and all of this is ta'bir, is your ability to articulate your ideas and get your ideas out of your head and off your tongue in a way that the person can understand what you're saying. So he said, ta'bir books are the books that focus primarily on conversational Arabic. These books will introduce basic grammar rules little by little, but the main focus of the book is conversation. The exercises are... So the focus here is like what? It's not on, because when you're studying Arabic, you don't need a lot of grammar. You need words and you need sentences. You need to understand the language. You can get the grammar later. The Arabs, they are the ones that go and study grammar. But you don't need the grammar. If you start to focus so much on grammar in the beginning, you're not going to learn the language very well. You're always going to be walking on a crutch. And I've seen all the brothers that got real into Nahu in the beginning. They never progress very far in the Arabic language. And they're very weak in the Arabic language. But they can give you the Arab of everything that you give them any sentence and he can break it down and give you the Arab. But boy, get him to go into the store and have a conversation with the guy that's selling stuff in the store. He can't do it. He can't. Without making 1,000 mistakes. Focus on the language, just speaking language. Get the grammar later. All right. The exercises in each chapter are built around a conversation. This is generally what is referred to as task-based learning in the jargon of pedagogy. All right. So task-based learning is that you have a task, you have a focus, you have a primary thing, and you know, going to the hospital, going to the doctor, going to the store, getting a passport. You know, you're in the airport, and then they give you all the vocabulary, and then they give you what, like exercises just to what.
Exercise your brain.
Yeah, they get more practice with the language and try to use it in different ways. All right, so they normally build the whole thing around a conversation. Ahmed is in the matar, you know, with Saleh, and Saleh, you know, is coming back from Turkey or something like that. So this is what's going on. And then they give you the conversation using words that you would use in that situation. You will read a conversation which the teacher will explain word for word for you, with the focus being on the new vocabulary. After which you will undertake different tasks and activities to test your understanding and ability to use the new language that you learn. You will notice that each chapter has a specific context, such as being in the hospital, going to school, buying at the market, traveling on a plane, going to the immigration for a visa, etc. New vocabulary will be introduced that are needed for these specific scenarios. The vocabulary and the appropriate manner of using it becomes the focus of the conversation and all succeeding activities. Your ability to take the taught language and produce grammatically correct sentences with it shows your understanding of the material taught in the chapter. So here, at this level, you're just be doing a lot of memorization. So like the sentence like, ضَرَبَ زَيْدٌ عَمَرًا. Now you're going to sit there, well, why is it Zaydun and why is it Amran? Just memorize it. You know, you study this in grammar later. Maybe you're one of those people that can start to, handle this in the beginning, but just this is the way that, all right, the person who does it, Daraba Zaydun. The person that the action is done to, Amran. Khalas. You don't need to know the whole i'rab, and this is a fi'l madi mabniyun ala al-fath la mahalla lahu min al-i'rab, and this is Zaydun fa'ilun marfu' wa alamat raf'i dhammatu wa dhahira fi akhiri. You don't need to know all that in the beginning. You just need to know, just memorize. It's a lot of memorization. And that's why what I always advise the people with is that to take those conversations in those books of ta'bir and read it over and over. And when I tell the people to do this, of course they say, "Oh yeah, okay, that sounds good," and they never do it. But I said, at least 20 to 50 times, with the emphasis being more towards the 50 than the 20. Just read it over and over and over until you get the conversation stuck in your head, and then you start to go through all the exercises, right? And with all the exercises, instead of just sitting there like, well, what do most people do with these books? They write the answer in the book, right? Mm-hmm. What type of benefit do you get from doing that?
I did that at first with the Medina books, but then I got my own notebook.
Now, first off, you just messed up the whole book. Second thing is you haven't practiced speech. You wrote a word in a book. How do you practice speech? Number one, write the whole sentence out with the correct answer. Number two, write the whole sentence out with the correct, when I was doing these books, and I told y'all this before, I think maybe I mentioned this in the previous lesson, I used to sit at a table. Sheikh Yahya used to be right there in front of me with like 15 books. I don't know, half the library was next to him. He had books stacked up over here. He had books on the floor. He would go around and he's reading these books, and he closed these up, pulled these down, and this is how he did his research for hours. And I would sit there with my little stupid ta'bir books, and I'd be writing and writing and writing for hours. And every time I got tired, I looked up and I looked at him and watched him. And I said, and get back going, because I was just watching him the whole time. Watching an alim from the ulama, just sitting there, just putting in work for hours and hours. And I would stay there for until 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock, whatever. Till they basically said, all right, everybody, y'all need to get out this library, Because once they closed the library, it's, there's no electricity in Damaj. And, there wasn't. I mean, I don't know if there is now, but there was none in those days. So we had lanterns, like these little gas lanterns in the library, put all around. So when they turn out the lights, you have to sit there and get close to and everybody starts to move towards where those lanterns are, and then you go home and you got hyenas and stuff. You're out in the desert, so it's real dangerous, man. You're the only one walking at 11 o'clock at night. So yeah, but still, I enjoy just sitting in the library, just sitting there writing. And this is in Ramadan, akhi. And he's busy like this. He goes and doing this, and then he's going to get up and leave the library and go to the masjid and do qiyam al-layl for the whole rest of the night. So I mean, this is the life of this person, man. It's no joke. But that's the whole thing. The shahid of this is that I used to write all that stuff out. Like my notebooks were full, and we didn't start the class until after Ramadan. So by the time that we actually started the class, I had already written out maybe half of the book. Or like a third, I would say about a third of the book was already finished.
You guys were doing that book in the class?
But the class wasn't going to start until after Ramadan.
Okay.
But I was already in the library writing everything out by hand. Going home, reading it over and over and over and over again. So by the time that we started the class, I was just revising everything. Everybody else was learning something new. You have to do this. You have to, all this work, you have to do this on your own. Don't wait for a teacher that's going to take you by the hand and say, well, Timmy, this is what you need to be doing right now. No, you need to have that type of initiative to say, well, this is not going to help me learn the language by sitting here writing a word in a book. I need to write the whole sentence out. Then I need to be reading these whole sentences. I need to be practicing. So it's not just the conversation. I would take the conversation, I would write the whole conversation out into a notebook. Then I would read the conversation over and over and over again. Then I go to the exercises. And I would write all the exercises out in the notebook. Now, obviously, I'm in the library watching the sheikh, so I can't sit there and just start reading them out in the library. I go home and do that. I go home, strike up my little gas lantern at home, and start reading them myself. And then I go to sleep. But I would not go to sleep until I got that stuff done. I wanted to go to sleep. I wanted to dream about those words that I was reading, all that stuff that I was writing. So, I mean, this is what you have to do. And like I said, don't wait for somebody to tell you to do this. You just need to do it. So he said, the exercises in these books tend to cover the 4 skills. The first two skills, which are the receptive skills, listening and reading, because you're receiving information. And the second two skills, which are the productive skills, speaking and writing. Everybody wants to jump to the productive skills. They want to speak and they want to write. No, you need to what? You can't produce until you receive. It's like you can't give money that you don't have, right? So until you start receiving, just like a child, when a child is learning a language, what do? In the beginning, they don't say anything. They can't even make sounds. They're just crying all the time. But they're listening. They're taking it in. You're talking to them. You're giving them these little small words. Say mama, say baba, say mama. You know what I'm saying? And then over time, then they can start to what? They start to kind of produce it. But when they produce it, it's like mamu. And then, oh, he said mama. No, he didn't say mama. He said mamu. You know? But then over time, what happens? He gets it correct. And then he goes from mamu to mama to mama to mother to my mom to, you know,
Ma'am.
to ma'am, yes ma'am, no ma'am, to getting smacked upside the head. All right. So, but the point is it's because he's learning, he's listening, he's taking the language in, and then he starts to produce. So you have to focus first in the beginning on really getting strong in the receptive skills of listening, because if you can't sit down and listen and make out what the person's saying, how are you going to be able to speak? If you can't sit down and read and understand what you're reading, how can you write? You understand? So this is reception. This is receptive skill. That's a productive skill. You know, a good reader will be a good writer. And a good listener will be a good what? Speaker. But you can't, you know, have people that are not good at listening and then good speakers, or a person that doesn't read books and he's a good writer. It just, I've never heard of that. I don't know. Maybe I'm too old. All right. So he said, speaking and writing. All right. However, the vast majority of the time will be spent on listening and speaking, because that is what the majority of the people are concerned with. Reading and writing are two skills you would generally have to work on by yourself. You read a lot, you write a lot. That's it. Your writing will improve as your ability to read improves, because these two skills are connected together, just like listening and speaking. As your ability to listen becomes stronger, your ability to speak will become stronger. This is similar to how a child learns. The child spends the first months just listening to the jibber jabber of his or her parents until he or she can finally produce a word. However, the word is generally warped and a bit and unclear. Over time, the child's words will become clearer and more precise as the ability of the child to listen better improves. So, I mean, this is something that but everybody's in a hurry, man. Don't be in a hurry. And that's the most important thing. Like, focus on the things that, you know, don't be in a rush. You're not in a rush against time. You write the stuff out, read the stuff over and over again, and practice. And read it out loud with a voice, because when you're reading out loud, you're not only practicing your speaking, but you're also practicing what?
Your pronunciations.
But you're practicing your listening, because you're listening to yourself and how you're saying it. You're listening to your own voice and how it's supposed to sound, and then you focus on how the other people say it and see if it's matching. So this is very, very important, and Allah knows best.